Hi everybody, it's me. I'm back again, and I have started a new segment called Vet Rehabbers from around the world. Mostly because I thought it would just be fun to try and find out what it's like being a rehabber in a different country. So I decided to start and get some vet rehabber love. Hi, Michael. With my fellow colleagues, like I say, from around the world, and we're starting the furthest part of the world that I could possibly think of. We've got a vet rehabber from Australia. So, Michael, hello, welcome to the UK, as welcome as it comes. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael. I'm pretty new to this whole field. I've started off doing myotherapy and sort of built on from there, and amongst doing other things like what have I been doing? Acupressure. This is all in the last 4 years. Acupressure, myotherapy. What else am I doing? Craniosacral therapy, vet nursing, my CCRP. What else am I doing? Gosh, mine's blown blank.
Don't worry, it's always hard when you're faced with these questions.
Therapy, yeah, so bone therapy and a whole lot of continuing education with online pet health, which is where I met you, and VS MRI, and also on the VAHL forum, which is part of the CCRP. So the last 4 years have been pretty full on and pretty amazing. So enjoying it all.
Bless you. That is so much learning. So Octavia has jumped on to say, fantastic to see Michael. Well done. You are amazing. So you've got a fan there already. Well done. That's great. Thank you for jumping on, Octavia. We want to hear from you guys. If anyone has any questions at any point and wants to find out a bit more about being in Australia and being a vet rehabber over there, please ask. So what's the weather like there at the moment? Is it hot, cold?
Everything, actually. Today was actually really nice, but yesterday was pretty good, but the days before that were pretty awful, actually. Had the heaters on, and it's
heating,
sort of like 20 degrees and then goes down to about 11. It's supposed to be 6 degrees tonight.
So when you live in the UK and you are a UK person, you basically think Australia is hot sand all the time. We don't think that you have any hot, any cold. You have no need for heating. And we watch Neighbours and Home and Away and believe that that is the world in Australia.
Yeah, I don't watch Neighbours, never have. So.
That's what I hear of you guys. You don't like your own programs. How funny is that? But to be honest, I don't watch EastEnders either. So there we go. So what made you want to become a vet rehabber?
Well, interesting question, because my background's actually architecture. I've been an architect for 25 years, well, in the architectural field for 25 years, practicing both in Australia and in the US. And it pretty much sort of came about in the last, probably 6 years or so. I've had dogs for about the last 13, 14 years, Weimaraners, and it's through them that I kind of got into the world of vet rehabbing, just interest-wise. Started off with my first dog, not rehabbing him per se, but just being involved with a lot of trials and shows. And I just thought I was going to get a dog for a pet, and it ended up being way more than that. I've learned so much from him. But he passed away last year, unfortunately. So we had wobblers, or he had wobblers, and ended up, it was an osteosarcoma that did his foreleg in. So so it was pretty full on 9 months last year, but it was through him that I got into vet rehabbing, more so with the trial work that I was doing. And then I got asked to start judging and tracking. So in 2013, 14, I did my tracking license and registration. So I'm an ANKC tracking judge. And with that, I sort of got really interested in dogs, or more so, and I was trying to I think I was enjoying all the stuff I was doing with my dogs, because then I had two. I ended up getting his half-sister. And with that, I decided I was trying to think of what I can do to turn my hobby, which was dogs, into a profession, instead of doing the architecture. But as much as I loved architecture, But yeah, I was finding, it was really interesting working in the dog world and realizing what injuries dogs were getting in the trial world. And yeah, I sort of ended up starting off the myotherapy course and didn't even know vet rehabbing existed as a profession, so to speak. So from there on, I kind of took the journey to do the myotherapy, and then a course that I was wanting to do for rehab kind of never eventuated here in Australia. So in between, I took up some time and did some coursework in just online stuff on elbow and hip dysplasia, not realizing the significance of what elbow and hip dysplasia is and was and is.
It's huge,
yeah, and then also did some behavioral courses just out of interest to sort of do something sort of parallel to what I was interested in. And then a good friend of mine, actually, if it's Octavia that's listening, through her, I got interested in bone therapy and didn't realize there was a bone therapy for canines. So I decided to do that. And that's where I learned, that was the start of my journey on learning about fascia and how important it is to human rehab and canine rehab. So so I did a little bit of human work with that as well. And then from there, I ended up doing, actually I ended up spraining my ankle twice in 2 years. Same ankle, pretty similar injury, but the second injury involved me getting a reconstruction. So so I got pretty friendly with my physio for a good year while I was doing rehab. And that also, by having the forced time off, I ended up doing an animal acupressure course with tall grass, and completed that course in 9 months. It usually takes about 2 years that I sort of pushed that. And then just prior to that, I also did, actually I got accepted into the CCRP course in sort of late 2017. And that sort of just opened up my world in what was available in this field.
There is a lot, isn't there? And actually, that's exactly what you're highlighting there, is just how much is available to us and how much we can learn. And, those things that you're saying, they're available to all of us because luckily a lot of it's online, which is quite helpful. But obviously nothing replaces getting your hands on. And obviously I'm thrilled to hear as well that you're doing the nursing, because that's obviously, it's going to be a huge background to you. So
yeah, so I've done, I've almost finished that with the coursework. That finishes up in the next 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and then so I'm excited about that. And then I've got about 80 hours of placement to finish off on that. So I've done 400, nearly 500 hours of placement in vet nursing. But I've also done some human physio observation. My physio, was it 2 years ago, allowed me, was it I think it was 2 years, or it might have been last year, I can't remember now. I think it was last year. I spent 2 months with him doing some observation work. And it was really interesting, actually, because a lot of his patients were from the same surgeon that I had that reconstructed my ankle. And I really enjoyed just watching him do his diagnostics and then palpation skills and just manual therapy work that he was doing. And he's also a taping expert here in my local area down in the Geelong region. So he taught me a lot about kinesio taping and rigid taping. Not that I do rigid taping on dogs, but I do K-taping as well.
Amazing.
So I really enjoy the K-taping side of it. I think it's a really fun modality, applicable to some patients that I've got, but not all, not the big hairy ones. Yeah.
Your story is really interesting as well, because something I hear quite a lot is that people are not necessarily in this type of profession, and they get a dog and they get, usually the story is that their dog gets paralyzed or broken leg or something like that, and it gets and sparks their interest, and then they end up exploring this world, and then ending up loving it, and so going right down it. And you're a prime example of that, and which is fantastic, because obviously it's another amazing shout out that people can change professions at any point, and there's never an end, is there? So that's really great. And I mean, another one I wanted to know is, like, how does veterinary or the people embrace rehab in your country? Like, so over here, you still get people who say, "Oh, what, you do physio on animals? That's weird."
I get that.
So,
Yeah.
you know, are you considered witchcraft, or are you actually, you know, something that's embraced quite well?
Look, it is a very new field here too. I mean, given, you know, I remember Dr. Miller's telling me it's only, you know, 35 odd years at Tennessee of you know, 35 plus years of training that he's done there or teaching. So it is a very new field, and it is you know, extremely new here in Australia too. When I was doing my vet nursing as part of my prerequisite for my CRP, I'm sort of doing it a bit backwards, but I'm still doing it. A lot of it was sort of hard for me to put on my vet nursing hat because I was primarily in rehab. So I'm going through the motions of the vet nursing to appreciate what's going on there. But I always had my vet rehab hat on whenever a patient came in, and I was trying to palpate the patient, you know, while I'm doing whatever I needed to do. It's like, oh, okay, this, you know, it's a bit tight around here, or, you know, I can feel knots and tension there, or okay, I can feel some warmth and lameness and sleep, or, you know, gait. You know, when the dog was walking in, I'm just automatically going into gait mode. So it is a new field here. A lot of the vets didn't understand why I was there anyway, especially coming from the rehab world. But there are a few surgeons that I've met along the way where I was doing placement, and some of them were actually doing rehab as well, doing the CCRT course at CRI. So I actually got a good chat with one of the vet nurses and one of the surgeons that was doing the course over there. So we had a good powwow on my last day about rehab, and that sort of just was sort of the icing on the cake for my placement for that particular. Yeah. So it is new. It is new, and a lot of people don't understand it. But when I explain it a bit more, what we do, and
I mean, it's nice to hear, because it's a uniting comment, really, because I think that's where we are here as well. And there's a lot of people that are, you know, it's much more normal now. I think it's far less witchcrafty than it used to be seen as. So, you know, hopefully you'll get there. But it's interesting to hear that similarity. So, like, what's the sort of most common injuries that you're treating?
Well, one of the vets that I'm consulting with, their specialty is in geriatric and end of life osteoarthritis patients, which is really interesting because there's a whole variety of different symptoms and things that go on, the lameness conditions, and toppled with the sort of whatever life stage they're at and what surgeries they've gone through in life. It's made some pretty interesting cases. So that's one of the diagnostic vets that I'm consulting with.
That's very, it is very interesting, because obviously arthritis is definitely one of our most common issues as well. And just to jump straight to that point then, you know, is it just ridiculously common there? I mean, because for us in the UK, it's very much a winter illness. Obviously, it doesn't go away in summer. We don't see that, but in the winter, you just end up with a massive influx of cases coming, because obviously winter really aggravates it. Do you find that you have that seasonal issue over there? Because obviously you're generally hotter, but obviously maybe I'm wrong.
Well, we're hot, but it's a damp cold, and the damp cold isn't nice. And, you know, our winters in Melbourne or in Victoria are pretty brutal some years. Like, it can be really windy, wet, and, you know, especially in the trialing world, you know, I work in pretty obnoxious conditions. Sometimes when I'm judging, it can get down to negatives. You know, sort of might only be 1, 2 to 5, -5 degrees, but with the wind factor and the rain, you know, it's pretty brutal, and you can be wearing like 5 layers of clothes and a Gore-Tex, you know, everything, and you're just still freezing cold. But in terms of osteoarthritis in summer, winter, you know, I think it's an all year round disease, and it affects all ages. It doesn't discriminate, and that's what I'm trying to really sort of mention to a lot of the clients that I've got, you know, and working with the vet, you know, that this is a team event. It's not, you know, one thing, that it's not old dogs just get it. You know, it can affect dogs, you know, puppies that have got, OCD
things.
Yeah. So, you know, I had a case 2 years ago where the dog had a green stick fracture. at 18 months. I've got a client right now who's got an 18-month-old whippet, and it's it was in a traumatic injury, and it's basically it's had a medial luxation of its patella, and it's got massive quadriceps contracture, and that dog's going to be a candidate for osteoarthritis because the owner's not letting the dog rest. He's letting the dog chase rabbits around the property, and it's only 3 weeks post-surgery. So
blimey, he's going to get told off for that.
That was an explanation of osteoarthritis to a client.
Yeah.
But what's really nice about the vet that I'm working with is that they're open to a global sort of approach to using rehabbers and they've got NSAIDs and all the pharmaceuticals, veterinary approach to it, more open approach. But they're also a very strong CAM supporter.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So CAM's definitely strong in. So CAM is Canine Arthritis Management. UK set up a company that is all about arthritis. So that's, I'm just explaining to anyone watching, because that's really cool, because that the UK's approached Australia and been supported over there. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So in terms of pet types, because obviously dogs, cats, rabbits, and horses would be the most common pet type here. Is that the same ones over there, or
pretty much
pet kangaroos, and camels?
Well, no camels that I know of. Oh, I've seen camel pets in Central Australia. Whether they're pets or not, but I have seen them at the car park at the local, at the local servo in the desert. But that's pretty rare. I think dog ownership's pretty big here in Australia. It's like the US, and actually where I live in my shire, we're supposed to actually have the highest dog population per capita in Victoria. Yeah. So I think it averages like 3 point something dogs per household, which is crazy.
And are your dogs mostly like pet? Is it that they're kept as pets, or are they working dogs? Are they property, like guard dogs, or are they, working dogs?
Very. Most of them are pets. I can't tell you what the percentage of pets are, but there are a lot of farms out this way, or in Australia generally. So you've got a lot of sheepdog, cattle dogs, whether they're actually working dogs or not, because there are a lot of them that are used, they're just kelpies and cattle dogs and the similar working dogs that are used as pets as well, or not used, but they're just loved as pets. So, there is a fair working percentage of dogs, and then you've also got the dogs in the police force and sniffer dogs that work in airports and things like that too. So I have a colleague who's a retired police officer who wasn't directly involved with the sniffer dogs there, but he was, because he was a tracking judge, he was sort of on the in of what was going on in that world. So, but I think the dog world, as far as working dogs, there's a fair population of them, but I haven't.
It does sound like you've got a very similar demographic to us. That's a balance really, which is lovely. Yep. And in terms of sport, I'm just trying to wonder if there's any sort of more unusual sports, or because here it's agility, fly ball, and
we do all the same. We've got I'm involved with the retrieving groups because I've got gun dogs. I've got Weimaraners. So I do, retrieving. I do Ratchi, raft. I do some obedience with my guys. So that's big. Tracking, because I judge in that, and then my dog show as well. I don't show them. I have a colleague that helps me show them because I don't know the first thing about that side of it. But I've learned a lot about conformity on dogs, and also interestingly, I think it's a really good area to learn how dogs gait properly. And then even the show ring, you can see lame dogs that aren't gaiting properly, even at a walk. Don't say anything, but you observe what a good dog is and what isn't good. So that's helped me a lot in my gait.
Well, it takes me on quite nicely to the next thought is, how are owners in terms of investing in their animals? Sort of obviously as you go from different country to different country, economics, things like that, money, insurances, God knows what, they all change. And, do people invest quite well in time as well as obviously money, because obviously there is a cost of it in their dog's care, or is it something that, they tend to just be sort of, oh, well, he's broken, but, he just rests in the back garden and that's that, where are they with it?
I think dog ownership here is taken pretty seriously. And it was interesting. One of my brothers said, if you work in the animal industry or you work in the kid industry, you're guaranteed to make money, because there's an emotional attachment, which, is different to having a widget, an object. It's a life force. So, a life being, sentient being. So a lot of families here in Australia are pretty attached to their pets. So they do invest in them quite heavily, especially, things like dog beds and toys and all of that stuff. As far as the medical side of things, I think people are starting to learn, what's available, especially in the rehab world, especially. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of referral centres? Literally, you can't swing a cat without hitting 14 referrals. Here, it's an amazingly easy situation. There are a lot of referral centres around. But yours is a huge country. So do people have to travel for like an hour to even get to their local vet?
Where I'm working at our hydro rehab centre, at one of the places I'm working at, we've got people driving up to 2 hours away.
Wow.
But that's because it's underwater treadmill. It's specialized. That's super specialized. I have traveled 2 hours to go and visit some patients. Like this week, Thursday, or actually last week, Thursday, I was up in Ballarat, which is about an hour and a half, not quite 2 hours away. So, it depends on where the patients are, and whether I do that ongoing all the time. I've got to work out the practicalities of it, but I'm just starting out at the moment. But there is a huge market up that far away, and I'm working with a colleague at the moment to see that we can make something happen out of that opportunity, because it'll benefit both our businesses, especially with the vet referrals that she's getting over that way. But yeah, wow. For specialties like hydrotherapy, people will travel 2 hours for. But yeah, I'm just hoping, with my skill set, which I'm still learning, because I'm still very green at it, I have to admit, only doing it for a few years, it's if I can get clients, consistently, yeah, I'm in. Just to help the patients, help the owners out.
No, sure. That's amazing, and I was equally going to say, to anybody who's my area, wow, just think if you had to travel 2 hours to find your rehabber, that's incredible, or anyone. But literally, no one has to travel that far.
Yeah,
oh God, it only takes 4 hours to travel across Britain.
Where I live is about an hour and a half, nearly 2 hour drive from Melbourne, depending on traffic. So I'm sort of southwest of Melbourne, down on the surf coast. So I know out in my area, there's not that much of a rehabber specialty market per se in people in my field. So there are people that do one or two modalities, but there's no one sort of trained up, sort of like I've trained. And I didn't do that just because I want.
No, I understand.
For the trip of it, but the CPR has taken me, further than I thought that I could imagine I'd ever be. Yeah.
So how do people feel about the travel? Do they, do they resent it? Do they go, oh God, I have to do that travel?
Not the patients that we're seeing in underwater treadmill. It's amazing. People are driving 2 hours for literally 6 minutes in the underwater treadmill.
Such
yeah, 6 minutes of actual walk time. Because by the time 6 minutes, 1.5 minutes a session. I've got a patient with FCE, and or two patients actually, and they're driving 2 hours to see us. They're early stages. They've only just started visiting us in the last few weeks. So and with COVID on, it makes it difficult. They've got to go through roadblocks, police roadblocks and everything to get it to us. So, and they've been referred to us by Melbourne New Vet, which is, a significant, veterinary practice in Melbourne. So they've, they know that we're the only vet, or not vet, the underwater treadmill in the region. So they come to see us. But they're extremely happy to drive that far for their animals, their pets, which is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Dedication absolutely is commendable, isn't it? So, I mean, I was going to say, how people are following their rehab plans and things. Are they good and at doing what they need to do? But I guess they must be if they can find. I mean, 2 hours, that's your day,
Oh, look, most of the owners I've met are exceptional about doing rehab. Even some of them are doing minor. They've got dogs who've got minor injuries are following through with rehab plans. They've been referred on by the vet. And then some of them are actually doing it for training for next year for their dogs, in agility, for instance, because, agility dogs are susceptible to a lot of injuries because of all of the torque and torsion and the body. So they realise that they need to condition their dogs. So they're just coming in for conditioning, not so much rehab per se. But yeah.
So we've got a really big problem with pet obesity in the UK, very sadly. It's not the UK problem, it's a USA problem as well. But, is it a problem in Australia? Is it something you see?
I think it's pretty universal, unfortunately. And that sort of goes, sort of hand in glove with the osteoarthritis issue. I think I think there's a pretty strong correlation with overfeeding their dogs. And I think because it's so easy to feed dogs on certain food types, that, and then they start giving treats on top of it, and then the dog goes foraging. And then you've got breeds that have got dispositions for wanting to eat more as well. But I think a lot of people are just so used to seeing round dogs that they don't actually understand what a dog should look like with proper conformity and proper body type.
I do agree with that. And equally, that is just easy. I mean, food is cheap and it's readily available for all of us now. And so you just don't think twice about chucking your dog. I was going to say a carrot. That's because that's what my dogs get. But but obviously most people are giving them a digestive biscuit. So it's it's not great. But it is interesting that it sounds like we have an awful lot of similarities, really. So just checking quickly, what is the coolest thing you've treated?
The coolest thing, I'd have to say, well,
my koala.
No, I haven't actually treated a koala. I have handled a few pygmy possums. We didn't have to treat them, but they were just at the veterinary surgery. So they said, "Oh, go have a look at them." So that was pretty cool. Oh, dingo, actually, not to treat. But there was a dingo. It was a dingo conservation park about an hour and a half, 2 hours from me, and I got to go out there last year and play with some 8-week-old dingo puppies.
Oh, cute!
Yeah, and they're actually an amazing animal. So well adapted for an animal that's not native to Australia because it was brought in from the east. They've got a longer spine than a canine, and they're hyper flexible. So you can actually extend their elbows past the dorsal line. You can actually extend their heads caudally so that the tip of their nose touches their spine, and you can actually turn their necks around like an owl. And some of the dingo subspecies, there's actually three subspecies of dingo. There's a desert one, which everyone kind of knows, which are the sandy coloured ones. There's an arboreal dingo that actually is up in northeast Queensland, and they've actually got like an opposable digits, kind of like a koala, because a koala's actually got 2 thumbs.
Yeah.
So these dingoes are actually adapted so they can climb trees with an opposable thumb or an opposable first digit.
You can't even imagine seeing that, can you? You can't imagine seeing that. I have to say, I mean, Australia does seem incredibly welcoming when it comes to wildlife, because you have a lot of animals that are really not native and then go nuts in Australia. And,
cane toads, is that what you're referring to? Yeah, well, they're a big pest.
there's a lot of them, but I mean, well, rabbits is the one that I think we think of mostly here, because you just have such a huge rabbit problem, and we do too, but not, obviously they're native, at least to us. So yeah.
And rabbits, I've been into the Simpson Desert. I was there in 2013, and that was actually one of the best trips I've ever had in my life, aside from that. But the amount of damage that rabbits and feral cats, especially, because we were camping in one area and the feral cat footprints were the same size as sort of my hand here.
Wow.
They're huge. They were massive. And then I actually got to see a feral cat, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. They were like the size of a kelpie. They were huge. Wow. And the rabbits, like where we actually camped, there were remains of rabbit burrows and rabbit bones everywhere, and droppings. But yeah, where we were was out in the middle of nowhere, like literally in the middle of nowhere. It was on average probably 36 degrees every single day, and freezing cold at night at the same time. I'd probably get down to like 2 degrees at night, and then 36, 38, 40 degrees. You can get up to mid 40s, at the peak of summer. So yeah, the fact that these two feral animals can be so highly adapted, it's scary, and how far they've actually spread.
It is interesting. So we have some feral cats in the UK, but actually in Scotland there is wild cats, as they're called. They're completely nuts. So you can't. Oh my God! I think I understand that they can take down a deer. I mean, they're insane, and you just think.
That's scary.
I know, exactly. I mean, they have got a protection thing going on now, because they're actually incredibly rare and you won't see them. But it's amazing what they could do if they were in high numbers, and I would like to see them in better numbers, because they are so rare. I mean, I only found out about them a couple of years ago, but they are completely untamable. So people have tried to tame them and have them as domestic cats, and it doesn't work out at all. They are literally there are
feral dogs too out here, feral dog packs, and unfortunately the dingoes here in Victoria, state of Victoria, aren't protected for various political reasons. They're the only state where the dingoes aren't protected, and unfortunately the dingoes are getting shot they're allowed to be shot at by farmers, and they're being blamed for taking down sheep, but dingoes won't actually attack an animal that big. It's wild dogs or feral dogs that would do that. Wow. So the dingoes are being, used as a scapegoat to that, which is really sad, because for a species that's been in Australia, well, you could argue 40,000 years plus, and being taken down because of political, issues.
We have the same political issues with the badgers here. They're forever getting areas that they're going to be culled again, and I hate them using the word cull, because I feel like that's just a get out and trying to make it sound nicer than it is. And they're blaming the badgers for TB, even though there's like no science to support that. So I don't know enough about it at all to understand why in the world they would want to do that to badgers. It's awful, but I have absolute sympathy for the situation, because we have similar problems. So so interesting hearing how similar you are, and some diversities obviously, and it's just really interesting. So thank you so much for that, Michael. I've really appreciated our chat. And just because it is Pain Awareness Month still, I would like to know your top tip for pain management.
Pain management, top tip. Look, listen to your vet, I think is pretty strong advice, and probably also giving a plug to CAM. A lot of the patients that I'm seeing, owners, I put them to that site because there's so much good information on pain management. I just listened to some webinars that Hannah was giving last week on the VAHL forum that I'm on, and some of the information wasn't new to me because I'd heard her sort of talk about it prior, but that whole forum that she's got has come leaps and bounds in the last few years. Like, there's just so much good information and quality information on that, and a lot of it's from respected science. So I think there's
Definitely.
a lot of benefit to it, and giving that information to the owner and empowering them with that, to
I like
work
that.
in part of, as a group, as Hannah says, as a team, is so important.
It's absolutely brilliant, because there's a massive unity right there, because I give that exact same advice to my clients, is to go to the CAM website. So apparently across the world we're saying exactly the same thing: go to the CAM website. And Hannah is going to be absolutely thrilled to hear us saying that. And of course, to us rehabbers, it's nothing new, because we've known this information for years. But until you're an owner that actually has this problem, you don't think of it, and you don't think of where can I find more information, because, as you say, it's an up and coming industry, and this information is not new, but it's now been put into places where owners can find it. And Hannah also set up Holly's Army, which is also a Facebook website, that Facebook page that owners can talk and discuss their problems and all that sort of thing, get some unity amongst themselves and feel not alone, because it can be quite an isolating and lonely place when you think your dog's really sore, and you think people are judging you for the fact that your dog's still here and all this sort of thing, and actually it's not time for them to go anywhere, and you need some support, and it's really important. So I think giving the advice to go to the CAM website is an absolutely brilliant piece of advice, and equally is talking to your vet, because again, that's what I always say, is talk to your vet. Don't think it's the end of the road. There's always more you can do, but you've got to keep talking. Sitting at home just wondering and making your brain go nuts is not helpful. So thank you for that. That's a brilliant piece of advice. So thank you again for talking to me, Michael. And I've had a great time chatting to you. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think a lot of it to do with collaboration in the team event, or perspective, is come from my architectural background, because one of my mentors when I was working in Los Angeles, I was in grad school at the time, working in LA, and he was the first architect that, there's a lot of egos in architecture, in the architectural world, and rightly or wrongly so. I haven't experienced anywhere near that none actually in the vet rehabber world. But my mentor Michael in LA, he was saying that it's a collaboration. The word he used was collaboration, and he said that on so many occasions. So we would rely. We as an architect, you're in charge of the whole project, of the design, the concept, the idea. And you're trying to get this building done. And every building you do is a prototype. Like every animal you have is a prototype that you treat. So nothing's ever exactly the same. And Michael always said you need to collaborate with your engineers, your builders, the owners, the planning groups that you're working with during the planning process. Because as a vet rehabber or as an architect, you're not going to get it all done on your own. It's impossible. Yeah. So you need to work. And, we had a great example where one of the projects we worked on, where we had questions, or the builder had questions, we would actually shine a light or spotlights on the areas where there were questions. And then we'd actually sit down and physically go up there and nut it out, and we draw, on yellow trace, on the actual walls, on leftover plasterboard, or drywall as they call it in the US. And come up with the ideas, and we would talk. The builders and the subbies would all be equally have valued ideas on how to achieve the end goal, because there's so many ways, like in vet rehab, to do that. And as Dr. Miller says, we don't in CCRP course. He says we don't provide you with a recipe book. We just give you ingredients for you to work the best recipe that you need to treat your case.
Absolutely.
There's no one solution to anything, and one may not be something that you do the next week.
Totally.
So, and that's a lot of my architectural experience has, as a jack of all trades, master of none in the architecture world, has followed through into the canine rehab world.
I think it's an excellent piece of information to take with you, and it's one of the things that I'm really liking about the vet rehabber community at the moment is it's definitely starting to pull together finally, and it's really lovely because it's a lonely place to work otherwise. Most of us are working on our own.
I love the platform, meeting everyone on the online pet health forum. There's so many great minds out there, and so many people that are just so willing to give information. I know there's a good surgeon out there, Dr. David Dykus. If you ever see any replies that he gives on an orthopedic question, it's like, wow, it's like a little dissertation. So, and I learned so much from reading, his answers to other colleagues when they've got orthopedic questions, for instance. Equally so with other rehabbers out there as well. It's just amazing, and there's so much knowledge, and it's it is a young field, but there's so much that the field's giving back to each other, which is really funny. Yeah, so I'm glad to be part of the environment. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, it's great to have you as well. So so thank you so much, Michael. It's been a real pleasure to meet you properly, have a really nice chat, and also learn more about being a rehabber in Australia. So thank you so much for your time, and take care and keep treating everybody in Australia.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.